Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast for the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and I'm happy that you could join us today. Before I get to welcoming today's guest, I'd like to thank our 2024 President's Council sponsors. And these are companies that provide a tremendous amount of financial support for our association, in large part so that we can continue to be the strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking this year's President's Council sponsors. And those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, CMG Financial, Consolidated Analytics, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We greatly appreciate it. With that, it brings me to welcoming today's guest. I'm happy to have on today's podcast Chris Hilliard, who is CEO of Winnow. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, let's get right into it. I always am fascinated to hear how people kind of came into the mortgage industry. I know that you have a long history in this business. So when you share with our listeners how you got into the mortgage business.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, I think, like a lot of people, I kind of fell into it, actually. I started off as a servicing analyst at AmeriQuest Mortgage Company in 2002, so forever ago. And I started off there, and I really started to learn really all the aspects of mortgage. AmeriQuest had a really good training program at the time, and went through each one of them, and started to really like compliance, started to really like rules and following up, making sure that things were done appropriately and whatnot, and kind of moved my way up from there, and really focused on compliance and legal for all of my career, actually, at that point. So it was one of those things that got my foot in the door in servicing, learned the pains of the other parts of the business, and then moved into legal and compliance to really spend my career in pain.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Tell us about the launch of Winnow with my good friend Clint Rockwell.
Certainly. Prior to joining Winnow, I was the chief compliance officer at a company called Payoff, now called Happy Money. And we started a lending product from the ground up. I was employee number 20, and it was a very scrappy startup. And then we grew significantly. And in that time, we opened up a lending product, and that lending product required us to get a significant number of licenses. I had always worked with Clint Rockwell and with Buckley, and now with Oric, on those type of matters. So I engaged them, and we went through the entire process, got 85 licenses on a nationwide basis, and spent millions of dollars doing it. I felt there had to be a better way, and so did Clint. Clint was also very on board with the fact that, hey, look, we know that lawyers are expensive. We know that that most of the firms that we work with were expensive. Being able to kind of democratize the information that is underlying to licensing and to compliance and to just being in the mortgage industry and all of financial services was something that we strove to do. With Winnow, it was really building a product for old me, something that I could have used to bring my cost down to probably $300,000 maybe, all the hard costs of getting licenses and whatnot. It would have been a significant cost save, and also would have given me access to information I wouldn't have otherwise had access to easily, because Winnow makes sure that you're only seeing information that's applicable to your licenses and the products that you offer. So I wouldn't have to pay an attorney to do that for me. That was kind of the impetus for Winnow, and on my side at least. And then on Clint's side, it was seeing clients come in and ask for these nationwide servicing, nationwide origination surveys on one or two questions, and really spending tens of thousands of dollars to get the answer. And then the second that answer was given to you, it was out of date. The law firms weren't updating these things, and Winnow updates constantly. So that's kind of the other side of this of the scenario, and getting more folks into the tent at that point, and getting information in the hands of startups, new fintechs, smaller banks, challenger banks, and then also the very well established as well too, because everyone knows that it's very difficult to track everything that is compliance related.
That is an overwhelming undertaking, and good on Winnow for. I mean, that's a great product, but I mean, just for the industry overall, to have more entities have access to that type of information in real time and have the updates is fantastic. So wonderful, wonderful platform. We love working with Winnow. Of course, we are hot off of our Mortgage Innovators Conference. And Chris, thank you to you and Winnow for being a sponsor, a big sponsor at our Mortgage Innovators Conference. And we were very pleased with how the event came off this year. Looking forward to hitting Huntington Beach with that next year. Of course, at that event, AI was a huge topic and one that was addressed, I think, on several panels. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about Winnow AI.
Certainly, yeah, and I want to thank you for having us at the conference as well too. Honestly, it's the best technology conference in the industry, and we're very happy to have been a part of it from the beginning, and we'll continue to be a part of it moving forward. So, for those of you that have not been to it, you certainly should. It is very inexpensive to go to, and the amount of information you get and the knowledge you get from it, it's second to none. So, there's a shameless plug for CNBA.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate that.
It's an absolutely wonderful conference. As it relates to Winnow AI, I spent a little bit of time on stage at the Mortgage Innovators Conference talking about AI. Didn't really get specifically into Winnow AI, but Winnow AI really it's a large language model that's built on top of the Winnow data set. And for those that aren't familiar with the Winnow data set, that's something that's been compiled over 62,000 hours now, 62,000 attorney hours. It's all attorney compiled content. So everything that folks see in Winnow, all of what you're looking at in terms of getting a survey done or whatnot inside of Winnow, it's all attorney driven. We don't have any screen scraping or copy and pasting or anything like that. It's literally 140 plus attorneys have worked on the content that's in Winnow. So putting a large language model on top of that data set, with it being as curated and as accurate and up to date as it is, we don't experience, knocking on wood here off camera, we don't experience the hallucinations and the confabulations that other models do when they have access to everything out there on the internet. So if you come into Winnow AI and you ask a plain language question like, what are the usury rates in California, or what late fee am I allowed to charge on a second lien home loan in the state of California, we give you a plain language answer, and it's less than a paragraph, oftentimes might be one or two sentences, so you get the answer quickly, and you're not picking up the phone to try to call someone, either outside counsel or your in-house folks or anything like that. You can get a quick answer to a quick question, but you can also get an answer to a much more complex question as well too. And we allow you to say, all right, I'd like to see more on that. Let me see. You can change the brevity as well too. If you want it to be ridiculously verbose, you can have it be ridiculously verbose and get a 3 or 4 paragraph answer, or you can have it be really brief and give you just what you need. And then we link back to all of the different supporting articles inside of Winnow that it was stemmed from. So all the requirements that are underlying it, any regulations or statutes or constitutional articles, or even official guidance, that's also brought in as well too. So it's trying to make things easier for folks. We think Winnow is already easy, but there are folks that are in examinations that have regulators in their shop that just want to ask a quick question, get a very quick answer, and then move on. And that is what Winnow AI allows you to do, without the hallucinations, without inventions of law. So
that is incredible. Good for your company. That is wonderful. The one thing I was going to ask you, which kind of leads to my next question, because not only your history, your career, but certainly, what is core to Winnow is that you keep your finger on kind of the pulse of what's happening from a legislative, regulatory standpoint. What can you share with our listeners about what do you think is top of mind for regulators right now?
I mean, really, we've kind of hit on it quite a bit at this point as well, too. AI is very much on the top of regulators' inboxes and brains at this point, and how it interacts with underwriting specifically. Ensuring that fair lending practices and the protection of consumers from predatory lending and discriminatory practices remains a priority, even when you're bringing in artificial intelligence learning and machine learning into your underwriting process. So knowing and understanding what the impact is on on your underwriting process with AI is a huge hot button right now, and I would very much caution everyone and let people know, hey, look, you can bring AI in, and it's a wonderful tool that will definitely help you with underwriting, help you get through your application, pull through all of that. Just ensure that you can explain to a reasonable consumer how it affected their application. I oftentimes will let companies that are really trying to wade into the water of AI, tell them, hey, look, start with additive approvals. Don't use it to deny folks. Don't use it to try to sharpen or hone your credit box too much. Use it for additive approvals that wouldn't otherwise have been approved had you gone through just your normal automated underwriting process or manual underwriting process, for that matter. If you can use it on an informative basis, say you're taking into account things like, does the consumer have a prepaid cell phone plan or a postpaid cell phone plan? What's their rental history look like? Are they paying on time when they have a rent payment and whatnot? Those type of things, if you can add to the file you're looking at, especially for thin file clients, you can add to the file you're looking at and have an approval there. That is something that you're not going to be dinged for from a regulatory perspective in almost any regard. Make it additive first, and then you can start toying with bringing it in and having it be a tightener to your credit profile as well. And really, that type of thing is in the innovation and the financial technology behind it, and the fintechs that are using it or whatnot. Those are all also top of mind for regulators. I feel like I've gone on and on about it, but really the speed of innovation at this point in time, and what it has been for the last few years, is something that is gives pause and makes regulators be a little leery about what's going on in individual shops and whatnot. So being able to explain what you're doing with the new innovation, with new technology, with new software, all of that, being able to clearly explain that to your regulators and clearly explain that to your consumers is important. It's not just the ability to say, to your regulator, this is what happened and here's what's going on, but you should be able to also explain it to your customer. If a customer is being approved or denied, that's important to understand.
They want to know that as well. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Yeah, the industry is trying to keep up with the speed of AI impact to the mortgage space, and the regulators are trying to get their arms around that. So I think that's good advice. I think it's very, very timely comment from you, Chris. Thank you. You were last month right at our legislative day in Sacramento, served as one of our team leaders. Thank you. Not an easy job. I really appreciate that. You and I have also been on the Hill in DC at the MBA's National Advocacy Conference, and so I know you're a big advocate of being an advocate for the industry. So I'd love to have you share with our listeners why you prioritize advocacy for the industry.
Certainly. I will, as much as humanly possible, always be involved with advocacy for the industry. And I strongly encourage it doesn't matter what stage I'm on or what group I'm talking to, I always encourage folks to join organizations like the CMBA, like the MBA, like the American FinTech Council, because our voices, as you know, Susan, you've been doing it for a long time as well too, and been a premier voice for the mortgage industry. Your voice is only heard in so many areas. There's an echo chamber if you're sitting in your office complaining about what's going on in the industry and how rules are affecting you or what's coming down the road as it relates to new regulations. If you spend 20 minutes, an hour, or a day with groups like the CMBA and like the MBA on the Hill, in your state capitals, and you actually advocate directly to legislators, they listen. And the voice that's oftentimes, and unfortunate, but oftentimes the voice that's the loudest is the one that's heard the most. And CMBA gives voice to the industry, being able to actually have those meetings that we had and have an organized and really effective means of having folks that wouldn't otherwise be in Sacramento, wouldn't otherwise be talking to state assemblymen or state senators or anything like that, or being able to talk with the leader of the DFPI like we did with the lunch that you set up. That's huge. And oftentimes folks would not be able to get an audience with someone like that, ask questions, or even just be in the same room. So that type of direct advocacy is vitally important, especially now when we're seeing new rules and changes that relate to AI, to any type of regulatory technology, or increases in fintech and banking as a service. All of those things, the rules are being written right now for, and without influence from industry insiders and from people that just work in the industry themselves, without that type of influence, those are going to be written solely from the regulator's perspective. And while we definitely know that there are some great regulators, there are some folks that don't necessarily understand the product as well as they could too. So getting to educate those folks, I mean, honestly, like you guys have been doing with CMBA and with the automated underwriting proposals and all of that, that's vital. And getting that in now before it becomes law, when it's very much more difficult to change, is huge. So the direct advocacy for me is always a big thing. And I honestly tell people, be very blunt here, I honestly tell people, get off your asses and go and help the industry if you want to see a good tomorrow, because that's what you should be doing. We're helping set the stage for the next generation of leaders and of innovators and of lenders. And let's try to leave the stage in a good manner and set it well for the next generation too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much. And we need more people like you in the industry that value advocacy efforts in all states, at the local level, and certainly what the National MBA does. If we are, what's the saying that we've all heard? It's like if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you better prioritize your prioritize advocacy in your careers. Great message, Chris. Thank you, and thanks for being a guest on Connect. It's been great.
I'm continually in awe of all the things that CMBA does and can do and manage to keep all the balls in the air. So thank you for everything that you do, Susan, and everything the CMBA does as well. It's an absolutely critical organization and just the best voice for those folks in California.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us on today's episode. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go.